Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Lee Mumi, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome another Bay Area poet, Jeffrey Kingman. Jeff's poetry collection, Beyond That Hill I Gather, was published by Finishing Line Press in June 2021. He's the winner of the 2018 Eyelands Book Award for an unpublished poetry book and a finalist in the 2018 Hillary Gravendyk Prize book competition. Jeff has a master's degree in music composition and has played drums in rock bands for most of his life. And now, please welcome Jeff Kingman.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here reading for Coastside. So thank you, Diane and Steve, for inviting me. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to read from a little bit from my full-length book, Beyond That Hill I Gather, and then a little bit from my little chapbook, and then I'll read some more recent poems, so kind of going in chronological order. And I apologize if I have a little throat thing or coughing. I'm getting over a little bug, but I've got my cough drops and my specialty, so hopefully everything will go okay. So this is the book, Beyond That Hill I Gather, and these are mostly portrait poems of notable women. So my wife painted these 4 portrait paintings that are on the cover. So on the top here we have Cherie Currie, who was the lead singer for the Runaways in the 70s. So it was a girl band, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. So these were young women who were blazing the trail for women in rock. And next to her is Billie Holiday, who needs no introduction. And down here, this is Melva Kingman, who is my mother, and she is notable to me. And then lastly is Mary Gawthorpe, who is my wife's great-grandaunt, and she was a suffragist in England in the early 20th century. And for her activism and feminist views, she was jailed and force-fed, along with some of her other colleagues. And there's a Wikipedia page on her. Okay, so I will start in and read the first poem of this collection. And this poem is about Louise Brooks, who was the silent film star of the 1920s. How did it make you feel when they found you? Played tennis with Ted yesterday. He said Dad hasn't written. He sees me different now, burnt skin that flickers. Dad used to warn us when we shoved each other downstairs. Dance moves furniture by the wayside. I went into pictures, my sunlight trapped in the black curl at my cheek. Nobody now even sees. I sweep up my bangs, my forehead gleams from what I read in Tolstoy and Schopenhauer. I've let all that heat escape. Before they found me, I was walking a street, way out where there was no edge to the expanding city. And this next one is about Muriel Spark, who was the 20th century author who wrote The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. This is called The Way Back Home. Why and where a tinsel coronet, chosen queen of poetry, so nice to have one's hair stroked by a teacher. She submerges her telephone, his words moisten. Faraway languages spill from her unheld hand. Alone she wanders South Africa. What a long walk, and with a baby robin to feed. The earth chafes, and the baby's beak so sharp, A young woman out loud, a young woman out lost must test each thorn. She looks down through the parasol trees, wet, swooshing, incessant spray. Leopards are harmless. It's the yellow oxalis chases her home. Now it's just front porch azaleas. The sun must have set and the school closed. Even the walls evaporating, only voices left. She must form the words dryly. Yes, her hair was nice, the old teacher said. And this, not all the poems are portrait poems. Some of them are just on the topic, but this one is called Offspring. Babies are a crisp pile of leaves. Worm the pile, they soften, dance. Without strings, their mother inside them. Mothers die young, then work harder. No, I haven't forgotten. I roam the stairways and listen to the tapping of falling marbles. And now this next one is concerning Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich. And they both came to Hollywood and became big stars, but they always denied that they knew each other or had met each other. But there's an author who wrote a book called The Girls, Sappho in Hollywood, and it's by Diane McClellan. And she has a theory that they did meet in Berlin before they were big stars, and that they actually, for a brief time, were lovers. So this has been refuted, but it's an interesting theory. This poem is called Garbo Dietrich. How my sister and I made believe we were boys playing rough. Yes, I burned ticks, squashed spiders. You must have compared notes. You spoke out loud, everyone could hear your trail of bees. I listened, your voice was the phonograph. My unpainted lips are the burgundy you expect yours to be. I fling up handfuls of primrose and you shrug. Go ahead, shock them with your pants and necktie. Pretend we never met. Clasp my unconscious body. Support me firmly under my arm with your right hand, your left hand on my shoulder as I slip to the ground. We should have rehearsed. And this one's called Heidi of the Alps. And I'm kind of riffing on the old story Heidi, which many of you may have read as children. 1. Could climb it even now. She suspected the sunlit mountain kept out things out. No use fretting, the clock never whistled. Had no meaning to a goat. In the pasture, a blue feather she put in her hair, the wind blew against a crag. She would show them. Hens already knew. She was mountainside. Little girls have strong feet. Along the footpath, the pungent morning air, goats. The grass gave way to boulders chiseled by harried giants. Peter yelled, "Far enough!" Eyes on the jagged peaks beyond. Below them, wild rustling of furs, paper bags and smokestacks. 2. A poke from the horn, no need of a cup. The moon opened and laughed. 3. Goose-dimpled arms in the cold, petticoat the color of the few floating flakes. She imagined their mouths as they watched her fall, but she flew back up with a wriggling field mouse clenched in her beak. She cocked her feathered little head as she glanced down at them, pleased. Okay, so now moving on to this little chapbook called On a Road. And in this book, I am borrowing language and situations from Jack Kerouac's On the Road. sharp for any kind. First time in my life. Sawdust. Railroad hats, there weren't even any lights. In a minute. All I did was yell back, we relaxed. A flag. Dynamite. Taillights blinked. Saw a pretty girl. Roaring tires. In a minute. Men along the country. What's a farm? They fish wool. A blonde hand sneaked the platform. His goal to bounce. Somebody passed the bottom of it. Was there room? A young city boy, worried lips wet from thinking. Shoes for a journey. Why life wasn't interesting. Why language tall, old, and black with soot, so far you couldn't see. Let me off. Watch them disappear. Moths in the darkness, they had no cigarettes. Fallen absurd to proud devices. Leaning out of their trance didn't work. A sweet song flat over the boulevard. No, I didn't. But he loved the way she said it. Tender ear, ain't no flowers. They never asked. I kept offering. He lost her out by the towering red radio. Said he felt cold as a babe in a strange coverlet. I zoomed through, squandering gracious. So yeah, I zoomed through. I wrote this probably in 2017, and I don't think anyone had heard of Zoom at that point. So it's a different Zoom. Okay, so on to some more recent poems. This one I just wrote the other day. It's called ABBA, and that would be the pop band ABBA. Instrumental hook sounds like the tick-tocking of my watch. Swedish musicians we broach, know it will fade out, but shouldn't smile so smug in our prediction of predictability. It's a pop creation after all, not a scrap out of place, like a motor machine humming in perfect tune with shiniest hair, nose in a Daphne, face quiets my fretting mind. One look, I hear a bell peal. The flowers gone before spring. By then, will we know me, know you, or will the lyrics go on forever? And some of these more recent poems I'm drawing on childhood memories. This one is called Kinescope. When I was young, a goose snapped his beak, and a duck fed big flopping leaves of iceberg lettuce formed my contingent. Shelveston was real and fluffed his wings, but the goose was a puppet whose snappings, translated by a stout man named Fraser, told me of recent events in the surrounding neighborhood. To be frank, gossip. What exactly I was surrounded by, I was expected to imagine. Such was the writer's design. Each half hour, Garfield's lusty organ music served as his introduction, sounding like it came from the murky depths of an ocean inhabited by a man in an ancient diving suit who walked in a clumsy blur along the floor. A young woman down there named Minerva, always seen sitting on a rock, Dan's desire. But she had no legs and couldn't even swim, though her woman's body ended with a fishtail. The actress was pretty, of course. We left the town, our families, Liz was 1 and I was 3. We played on the floor and spoke a dialect, much like the cat. I couldn't yet feel animals. Chicago winters were bitter. Tigger was a hardy soul. My dad, his heaviness, watches the news, pushes the blanket from his lap, opens the door, bite of cold air, a scrambling noise at the bark of the elm. Tigger's mother taught him, to descend a tree, you have to back down. Liz's mom was a psychologist specializing in language. I live in California. Summer, the hills brown. Where Liz lives now, I don't know. Little strip of lawn. Oh, this one is a tanka, the sort of the ancient Japanese form, kind of like a haiku, only a little longer, and I've doubled it. So these are 2 5-line stanzas. Little strip of lawn, mowed in 3 passes. Dad's gently spinning sprinkler. Beads on fragrant grass. Sidewalk ants work the anthill, mottled by a drop or 2. Water darkens earth, releases a dormant dance. Spin on ballet toes. Ants escape the leaping girl. Ankles sparkle in the sun. My first visit to the attic. I open the ceiling, the attic steps. Halloween skeleton falls out, clatters along the unfolding steps to the floor. When I get up there, what will I do? Will I have to duck from the low slanted ceiling? Will it be hot and dry? Will it smell like hot, dry wood? Will there be a streamer of sunlight from the tiny window? Maybe a box of bayonets, a summer hat on a peg, red shape in the dark corner, pulsating as if alive. Or a mirror with dented frame leaning against the wall, looking up at myself. In the hallway, I slide the skeleton aside, peer up into the square of darkness, take the first step up the ladder. This one is called Heidi and the Bird, but this is a different Heidi. This is Heidi, my cat. Yes, I have a lot of poems about cats. Heidi and the Bird. A bird brought my cat into the house, just a small one, but it has this power over Heidi. She'd crouched and waited in silence. Her rough childhood, catching prey, now can't remember real hunger, toys with it as it flaps and bleeds. Light brown like a mourning dove, but smaller, small and brown and sentient. The power to meet its own death, but the cat won't finish it. Unable to fly, limps around the living room, looking this way and that. Heidi has left. I put the bird in a cardboard box, close it, rest in contemplation. Sweep up feathers, a long silence, tap the box to convince myself. I swipe a towel over the floor, and the blood, where it hasn't coagulated, smears. We learn what we can. Lost school bus, tell the driver. On a rattle street, we loosen things. Windows fall off, shatter on the pavement. He doesn't know how we got here. Is it the beginning or the end at this same school day again? They teach us the difference between fiction and Foursquare and metaphor bunnies. His name is Bugs, says the teacher. We lift him from the cage, so soft. On Halloween, I cut out a devil from red construction paper. The bunny hops over and sniffs the jar of paste. We love our bunny, but don't care about Easter. For Thanksgiving, we make turkeys out of our hands. So I have a couple more. How are we doing on time? Good? Okay. Stephanie. If you say goodbye to a house, the house waves back. But she didn't get the chance. She was away when her folks got kicked out way back when. Nostalgia is a 12-year-old thing. 7 was forever ago. Sure, you can take a look. Come in. Yep, we got rid of that old wooden gate. She remembered the laundry chute to the basement. She'd wanted to drop a kitten down to watch it land on a puff of towels. The whole litter escaped through a hole in the screen door. She pointed out the window her stepdad sent an ashtray crashing through. Hell of a noise, I bet. Scared you? 8 years later, Stephanie happened to rent the house across the street. It was her dream to join the Coast Guard. Took a test, had an interview, but they didn't like her tattoos. She cried about it. Before long, she moved out. This time, her own choice. I don't know if the house waved goodbye. She probably doesn't care about that kind of thing anymore. And one more. Glistening boys. Mounds of ice and snow cover the beach, where months ago we ran along the sand or pushed off from the dock in a sunfish and dove from the little boat into the lake and grabbed a rope, our bodies bubbling through. The water's resistance, a translation of quickening wind against yellow and white, against trees on the shore, against a house with weather vane and air conditioner, tiny snowflake on its dial. We walk over mounds of ice, rough terrain. Slipping and falling, we find an ice cave big enough for 2 small boys to fit. It's our reddening cheeks, steaming breath. The ice collapses and buries us. In spring, our parents will find us, less red and more stiff, but still ready for another season, another sailboat ride on another lake, another chance to find ourselves gone again, pulled at the end of a rope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. I'm going to suggest we all unmute and make appreciative noise. Oh,
Thank you.
glad
Thank
you
you.
could be with us.
Good reading, yes.
And
Yeah,
Thanks so much,
thank
everybody.
you. Good stuff.
Lovely stuff.
Thank you.
That's nice reading. It flowed right along.
So many familiar details of my life when I was younger.
Yes, a lot of rich associations from our youth. It's fun.
Thank you.
And sharp observations.
And it's so nice to hear it coming from the poet, hearing the rhythms of the lines and the images from in the voice of the poet itself. Wonderful, Jeff. Thank you. And you're to be commended for coming here regardless of having the flu and doing a full reading as you did.
Well, I was hoping it would go okay. I wasn't interrupted by coughing, so that was good.
Oh,
well,
it was,
if you hadn't mentioned it,
nobody.
no one would have known.
Okay,
You sounded fine, not hoarse or anything. So,
good.
so.
Whenever I hear your poetry, and I've heard it for several years, I'm always so amazed that I hear something new in it and understand it a little more, and really appreciate just how what an original and authentic poet you are.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Johanna. It means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. Vivid images, vivid images.
Well, thanks again so much, Jeff. And we'll stop recording in a moment. And okay, let's see. My screen just did something very strange. I'm sorry to everybody. We'll stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. And thank you, YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular COSI Poetry event on Tuesday, October 10th, when we'll welcome Stacy Dyson. So thanks so much for joining us at COSI Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.